Welcome to SoulShift, where modern science meets soul and real life meets real transformation. I'm Allie Anderson, and I'm here with my wonderful co-hosts, Mindy Gorman-Pletzer and Christine Morgenstern-Shin. Today, we're talking about something that can sound simple, but for so many women can feel incredibly hard to believe. And that is, you matter. Not because of what you do, not because of what you achieve, not because of how well you hold it together for everyone else, but because of who you are. Our guest today is Angie Huestis, a leadership development coach and the founder of Leading You to Freedom. As a young girl, Angie's sense of safety and self-worth was shaped by experiences that left her afraid to use her voice. For years, fear followed her. Fear of success, fear of failure, and fear of what others might think, quietly shaping how she saw herself, her confidence, and her place in the world. Determined to create a different future, Angie left her hometown, took risks, and built a life through resilience and hard work. She spent over 20 years in the beauty industry and later became a top leader in a global direct sales company, ranking in the top 1% and building a multi-million-dollar organization. She spoke on stages, mentored thousands, and became known for developing strong leaders and empowering others. Then, everything changed. The loss of her mother, followed by the collapse of the business she had built her identity around, brought Angie to crossroads. Stripped of titles, roles, and external validation, she was forced to ask the deeper question, what am I without what I do? That question changed everything. Angie stopped striving to prove her worth and began learning how to live in alignment with who she truly is. Through that journey, she reclaimed clarity, confidence, and freedom, not rooted in achievement, but in truth. Leading You to Freedom was created from that lived experience. At the core of Angie's work is a deep belief in the individual. She has the ability to see people beyond their fear, their past, or even their circumstances, and to remind them of their worth, often before they can see it themselves. Her message is simple and unwavering. You matter. Today, Angie mentors individuals who feel disconnected from themselves, those who know there's more inside them but are not sure how to access it yet. Her work is grounded in practical and deeply human, helping others reconnect with their worth, release fear, and step forward into a life with intention and choice.
What I love about Angie's message is that it's not about becoming someone else. It's about coming back to the parts of yourself that may have gotten buried under expectations, roles, fear, or the need to prove yourself.
And I'm really excited about the conversation where it essentially meets the nervous system, because when people learn that it's not safe to use their voice or to take up space, whether it's physical or mental, it doesn't always just live in the mind. It becomes a pattern in the body. So there's a lot of somatics involved with that, and then nervous system dysregulation as well. And so I can't wait, Angie, to dive into that part of the conversation. Welcome to SoulShift, a sacred space where modern science, ancient wisdom, and real life come together in perfect harmony.
Each week, we explore the gentle art of transformation. SoulShift holds space for your beautiful, messy, perfectly imperfect human experience.
Meaningful change doesn't have to break you open. It can unfold softly, like morning light.
Together, we'll uncover tools that honor your truth, share conversations that touch your soul, and celebrate the exquisite complexity of what it means to be human.
Your presence here is a gift. Let's shift with grace,
with love,
together.
Angie, welcome. We're so glad to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And Angie, as I was reading your story, I keep coming back to the question you were forced to ask after you were losing your mom and losing your business that you had built. Like the question of who am I without what I do? And I think a lot of us face that question. And I think it can sound very familiar to women in midlife, especially when any role changes, right? It doesn't even have to necessarily be a business, but relationships are changing. Children need us differently. Our careers are changing. And sometimes life just doesn't end up looking like we thought it would look. So I want to ask you, can you take us back to the crossroads that you were faced with and What did you begin to discover about yourself at that time?
Oh boy. Yeah. I mean, just, I put my worth in my work mostly. I always see myself as this little girl from Spokane, Washington that at 19 years old put the clothes in her, her closet and wanted to make something of myself. And so I drove to Seattle, the big city, and thought, oh, the sky's the limit, which, it is. But then, life circumstances happen and I wanted to climb the ladder of success. And when the ladder came crashing down, and I didn't have that anymore, that was where I was at that crossroads of, who am I without a business, without something I worked so hard for? And, with the loss of my mom and, I didn't feel like a daughter anymore. I mean, I really went through identity crisis of like these labels that have been put on me. And as women, we put on ourselves of who am I if I'm not a mom? Who am I if I'm, my son went off to college, just all these things as women, like we put labels on ourselves. And so, yeah, I was at a crossroads and it wasn't until I dug deep inside my heart and decided that labels, I wanted to strip them all off. Labels are not my worth.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that can be such a powerful reminder to all of us that even if something is ending and it can feel painful when it's ending, it can be opening the door to something that may be even more true in our lives, right? So I'm really excited about this conversation as we continue talking.
And as you're talking, Angie, I'm just thinking about how many women appear capable, appear strong, successful, and put together on the outside, but privately don't feel worthy unless they're achieving, unless they're helping, pleasing, or just simply being needed. So why do you think so many women struggle with knowing their true worth?
I've worked with so many women over the years and, I struggled personally with looking at someone on the outside and thinking they had it all put together. And when I started to get myself around women in general, where we just like let it all go, just dropped all the titles, dropped all the labels, and really started getting to know each other, that's when I realized that so many people walk around looking like they have it all put together on the outside. Success, beauty, it doesn't matter. Like, I found that we're all equal. We're all the same. And I really want to help women break free from that because I dealt with that. I dealt with, because I wanted to climb the ladder of success so badly. And I had that label of success or that familiarity of what success in my mind looked like. And so I'd look at women and think that, they had it all together. And when reality is, we really are all the same. We really have thoughts equally because we're women. And I think we put on so many responsibilities as a mom, as a wife, as a business owner, as just whatever that is for each individual person. Everyone has their own reasoning. I will tell you that I have found that everybody is definitely equal and they're the same. We just all wear it differently.
Yeah. Comparison is the thief of joy.
Yes, it is. Very much so.
And so many of us confuse our value, being valued, being valuable for what we provide, right? We confuse that with being worthy simply because we exist. And those two very different things.
And that's a good point, Mindy, because when I dug deep into my values as a woman, that's when I stopped comparing myself to other women. When we have conversations with women, women want to like be heard, right? And so if you're having a conversation with your girlfriend, you might put yourself in that situation. And so then you want to start talking about like what you're doing and for validation reasons, right? And so it wasn't until I dug really deep and I wrote down my values of who I am as a woman, just as a woman in general. And what's important to me, my family is my number one, my faith, my honesty, my trustworthy, or what are those core values that makes Angie who Angie is? And that was the day that I just said, I know who I am. I'm not going to compare myself to other women anymore because I'm not you and you're not me. But my values, you can never, ever, ever take away from me, ever. And so when women get challenged, as we do, because I was challenged a lot as a leader in a company, and I would constantly question my worth. When I stopped doing that and started looking at my values, I no longer allowed comparison to steal my joy and allowed other people's thoughts to dictate my own thoughts. Like that was really a big breakthrough for me.
I mean, that's really, really powerful what you just shared. I think we all know women that are stuck in the labels, or if they're starting to get to know themselves on a deeper level, they don't know quite how to navigate to take the label off and just be who they truly are. So I love that you went down that road of an exploration of really getting clear and defining your values, because it sounds like once you identified them, then you had a better alignment of who you actually are as a person. That was my impression. And, prior to all that, I know that there was fear, as far as I understand, before you chose this path of clarity and getting connected to your truer self. And can you share a little about how that showed up for you, whether it was in your thoughts, whether it was just like how you felt inside, and what the difference is now that you're on the other side of it? Because I'd love for women to understand that they can get on the other side as well.
As far as what fears I had?
Yeah, like how did it show up for you? For some people, it was very, very clear they didn't speak up for themselves, for example. But other people just play small and they have that little talking in the back of their head saying they're not good enough. So I'm curious of how they showed up for you specifically.
Well, I'll take you back when I was a little girl of identifying. I didn't know as an adult where the fear came from. So I used to fear what other people thought of me. I'd go to bed at night and I was the biggest worrywart you'd ever meet. I was trying to control everything in my life, control my relationships, just everything. And I had so much fear wrapped around the future, the past, the just everything, control, control, control. And again, like I'm a big believer in surrounding yourself with women who will pull your potential out. And I was fortunate enough to be around some incredible women who made me feel safe, made me feel secure. And one day I was in a women's retreat, a memory popped up, in my mind that I didn't know was down there, deep down suppressed from my childhood. And once that was, brought to light, I was able to overcome it and identify that, wow, I had a lot of fear to where I feared success. I feared failure. I really mainly feared what people thought about me, and comparison was the biggest ones that I personally had to deal with. And, one thing that I say to people is you got to punch fear in the face. And, I used to fear heights. And so no matter what fear you have, whether it's fear of people pleasing or even I tell people this all the time, it could be a fear of spider, and that sounds silly, but once you overcome one fear and you keep punching that in the face and you keep punching that in the face, you can start to unravel all the other fears that are coming up. Because typically it will come from something that happened in childhood that you may be walking around not having a clue that it's even there. I didn't walk around going, oh, I wonder what fear I have and why I have it. Like, I didn't know. I had no idea, actually, until I was, again, just ready to face it head on. And I was just tired of being fearful. I wanted success. And so I saw other people around me that had success. And I thought, well, I want what they have. And how did they overcome it? And how did they get through it? And so I did a lot of work to get through that fear. It wasn't an overnight thing, but feeling, safe around other women helped me get through it.
Well, what I love is that it sounds like it organically happened at that retreat you were at, and then you opened yourself up to access it. Those subconscious beliefs are really buried really deep. I'd like to acknowledge if anyone has heard of ACEs or adverse childhood experiences, because it's a quick way to look into, just take a peek to see if that might be you too. So I'm glad you brought this up, because if anyone's listening, there's a really gentle 2-minute test you can take. I think there's 7 questions, that they can see, because they might not have the opportunity to have your experience, that you had. So thank you for sharing that about the fear piece, because I just think it's something people don't speak about. We don't want to open ourselves up in that way in most social settings,
No, and I feel that because I'm a coach and I've identified, I think a lot of women are hurting. Like I said, like they look like they have it all. But I don't care what label you have, what title you have in life. Looking good on the outside, but on the inside, there's pain somewhere, typically in women. And we don't identify it walking around. And so we have a protective mechanism, and that looks differently for everybody. The protective mechanism could be, it just, I don't know. I can't even identify what they are, of just, when you could get defensive, or I can identify it pretty quickly. So I have a soft heart for women because I've been through quite a bit, of pain and loss and childhood, trauma and whatnot. And so overcoming it, yes, but also realizing that, we need to have a little bit more grace on women that we meet. Because I think everybody, if we could have a little bit more grace on women when they do get defensive, or just know there's pain there and know they haven't figured out a way. Yes, I was blessed to be in a room full of amazing people at a retreat, Christine, where most people won't get that opportunity. So I'm thankful every day that I was able to be in that environment, that I was able to get free from it. And that's why Leading Her to Freedom was created, was because I want to help other women get free from it, because it's not the way you should live, of living in fear all your life. And again, most women are walking around, don't even realize it's really the root of fear.
As we're talking, I'm just thinking about all the little ways that women can really slowly lose touch with themselves and maybe not even realize that they're losing touch. And one thing I wanted to ask you today, you've talked about before the number one thing that steals so much joy and confidence in women. And I'd love for you to talk into, what do you think is that number one thing, and how does it show up in sort of our everyday life to make us a little bit more aware that we might be losing our joy and our confidence slowly, but it's going?
Yeah, like we said earlier, it's definitely comparison. If you get around women in general, like I said, everyone wants to be the first to speak, or maybe some people don't want to be the first to speak. But I found when, like, even all four of us talking, you can put yourself in each other's situation, right? Your brain just will say, oh, I can identify with that, right? And then if you start to shrink back a little bit and you're comparing yourself, or I'll just give you an example. It's easier for me to talk about myself in my own situation. But like when it came to me building a business, I compared myself to other people, and I thought, they were smarter than me, or they had a higher education than me. And one of the biggest things that I thought was their parents were entrepreneurs. And so I was constantly like, oh, I can't be like that. I don't have that look that they have, or the success that they have, or the business background they have, the college degree that they have. I mean, I kept telling myself that over and over and over and over. And so it was stealing my joy. Instead of looking at myself and saying, what gift can I add value to? Instead, I was constantly, for years, I compared myself to other people. And I never truly found joy because I was constantly on this, hamster on a hamster wheel, because I wasn't them. That's not a fun way to live either, is because that's what I want to help women break free from, is like when you realize your values and you know who you are, then you get to use your giftings, and they might be different, and they are going to be different, as a matter of fact. You cannot compare yourself to other women. Like, God created us, I'll just share with you, like your thumbprint, right? We're each born with a unique thumbprint. And identical twins, they don't even have the same thumbprint. And so if you realize that and know that, like, you're created with such unique giftings, but we constantly want to compare ourselves to other people and say, oh, well, she has this and she has that, or she's better than this, she's better than that, I'm not that. That's the hamster wheel we need to stop telling ourselves in our own mind. And you can stop it, because you actually can control your own thoughts, to where most people think, wow, I didn't know I can control my thoughts. Yes, you can. You can control it by stopping that negative thought and start thinking, like, what are my gifts? What value can I add with my values that I have in life and the giftings that I have? Everyone's so different, which is what I love about humans.
I think what you just shared was incredibly important, that we're sitting in this place of comparison, but we all have different thumbprints. I mean, that to me just like, oh, of course we're all different. I love that you called it out and named it, because once we see that pattern, we have a lot more choice on how we handle it next, right? And it doesn't have to be complicated, like you mentioned. We can simply start by noticing it, and then start by acknowledging that we are maybe comparing, and maybe come back into ourselves. So what can I bring to the table, right? So thank you for bringing that up.
And I'm starting to think, as you're talking, as we're all sharing here, that the comparison culture, for lack of a better term, is really coming from the old stories about ourselves that we carry. So I think forgiveness can be one of the hardest things, especially self-forgiveness, when we need to look at the need to let go of those stories that we're carrying, which are not serving our best interests, right? So, I mean, I can share that I was on a similar path for many years. So I would love your take on forgiveness as being the key to happiness and what you mean by that. You've spoken about that and why forgiveness is so powerful in personal growth.
Thank you, Mindy. I'm a big, big, big firm believer that forgiveness is the key to happiness. And I don't think it's talked about enough. You know, when I lost my mom suddenly, my mom passed away. She was 69 years old and she was found, deceased in her apartment by herself. I was extremely traumatized, of course. And, this was back in 2013, I believe, right after my son graduated high school. So it was devastating. And so for years, I gained 30 pounds. I went through, of quite the trauma and turmoil. And so I'd look in the mirror, tell myself I was ugly. And I'm not usually that kind of person. Like I've been pretty bubbly my whole life, but this was trauma, and a circumstance that happened to me. And so I would look in the mirror. I didn't feel pretty enough. And so I was really hard on myself. And there came a time when I know this might be a little deep, but I had to forgive my mom for dying, and that key right there unlocked my freedom. I did it in my little safe place, to my heart, and just said it to myself because I was so upset and angry. And, grief comes in all different ways, right? And I was grieving. But the moment I forgave her, it was such a crazy turnaround of how much I started to love myself. For my 50th birthday, I rented an Airbnb and I had this vision of, we were supposed to be in New York, but COVID happened. And so I rented an Airbnb and I thought, well, I'm going to bring New York to me. And so I had all my friends come out and I wanted to be in Times Square. And I had this vision that I was going to be in a prom dress in Times Square with balloons. So I did it in Port Angeles anyway. And that was the moment. And I look back at these pictures because I had a prom dress, I wore a crown, and I had these beautiful pink balloons. And that's self-love. That's when I knew that forgiveness unlocked that for me. I don't have any other answer because it's not like I did anything different. I just forgave my mom for dying. It was something that was suppressing me. It was something that was heavy on my heart, on my mind. I don't ever look at myself in the mirror and say I'm ugly. I don't. And it's just because it's not there anymore. And as many women as I've worked with over the years, we're holding on to something. Women might be holding on to something, and it could be where you might need to forgive yourself. I had to forgive a family member years and years and years ago. I truly believe that if you spend some time in your quiet time and, sometimes people will say like some things are unforgivable. Well, I want to challenge you to forgive anyway, because the freedom is for you. And I could promise you that when you forgive, it is for your freedom, not for anybody else's. It's for you. It's a supernatural tie that gets cut and you will walk away free. It'll happen over time. It won't happen overnight, but you'll start to notice different things that aren't holding you back anymore.
I really appreciate you sharing all that. And I certainly give you my heart for your loss. I can't imagine how devastating that situation was for you. But what I'm hearing you say now is that forgiveness means choosing not to let it keep taking up all the space in your life. It's about letting go.
It is about letting go, but it's also sometimes it's one of those things too, where it's also you don't realize that that's something that you're holding on to. So I always ask people, and I'll ask your listeners here, is get into a quiet space and just ask yourself, is there somebody I need to forgive? And a name will pop up in your heart. It could be yourself. I don't know what that is for you, but I do know that a name will pop up. And you can write a letter and burn it, crumble it, do whatever you got to do in your own time and just say, I forgive you. And it will be hard. Trust me, it will be hard, but it will be freeing. It will be extremely freeing if you do it.
Yeah, especially when it's something that one has been holding on to for a long time. And very often that holding on has created a very strong belief system.
Amen. Yes, for sure.
But let's talk about forgiving oneself, because that really requires compassion. And it requires, in my experience, a knowing that the issue needing forgiveness was the best that we could do at the time.
Yeah. And like I said, we don't walk around saying, who do I need to forgive today? It's like there's something heavy, and I had a client one time that was having a really hard time forgiving somebody. And I just really strongly encouraged her. And I said, you don't even need to tell me that you're going to, do it. And she ended up doing it and wrote a letter and burned it. And that person called her about a week later. That's why I know the power of it. And this was a relationship that had been severed. And so again, we're not walking around understanding why things happen to us, or, even like you said, Mindy, forgiving yourself. Like, just get in your quiet space and say, who do I need to forgive and why do I need to forgive that person? It will come up because, again, it could be the same thing where it's super suppressed and you don't know, but allow it to come up. And yes, like I said, you could be bawling your head off and that's okay because it's freeing.
I love the energetic underlying of her writing and then that connection to after, because I don't feel like things just happen. I think there's a gentle, like, energetic alignment to everything. It sounds like you've done tons of just deep, self-discovery and reflection and work, within. And then also you've reached out, and I know this is more of a happy time, but when you bring your friends together, I think that's an important piece to talk about, because I don't think any of us, even if we try to do it all ourselves, I don't think we're meant to heal and grow completely by ourselves. I'm sure that crew you got together was loving and supportive of you, of how you're growing. Because think about it, some of our friends and family members, they can either reinforce the old stories that we've been telling ourselves, or you might release some of those people and start cultivating a newer community where they are now actually supporting, your needs as you evolve.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that with my clients, a lot of times they're releasing negative thought patterns, and could be physical weight, it could be not physical weight, it could be mental weight, but they start releasing relationships and friends or things of that nature. So I wanted to hear your take on community. And, I feel it's really important, but with you guiding all of these people through leadership and shifting their lives from fear to freedom, how important is it to have that core group, while you're going through this type of growth and healing?
Oh, it's huge. So thank you for asking me that, Christine, because, like I said, I always say that I was this little girl from Spokane that wanted to climb the ladder of success. And it wasn't until I got into community that I found, my purpose, and I did all that work because I looked at people that had freedom and I was like, I want what you have. Like, not in a comparison way, but like, wait, you're not getting offensive. Wait, you're not, worry about what other people think about you, and you're not doing this and that. And like, I wanted that. And so community for me helped me rise to my potential. And I had to let go of a lot of friends that weren't serving me into the place that I wanted to be. For 10 years, I built a business, and there was a lot of people that didn't agree with what I was doing. I mean, it was a direct sales business. And so some people don't agree with that. And I just didn't care. I was like, well, I'm so hungry for growth, and I've been hungry for personal growth my whole life. So in the community that I was a part of, like I said, it was just beautiful women that, they could see my potential before I could see it. And so they might challenge me. And I will say, like, I've worked with a lot of women too, and even being in, my past community as well, I think it's scary. I think that women are scared to do the inner work. And it doesn't have to be as deep as you think it does. When you get around people that are thinking differently, thinking higher thoughts than you, and speaking out positive words, your environment matters. Have you ever heard the saying of there's a bunch of crabs in a crab pot, and there's one crab trying to get out, but the other ones keep pulling them down? So who you surround yourself with does matter, because maybe you're that crab that wants to get out of the pot, but you keep being around the wrong people and they're keeping you complacent. Well, I've never been okay with complacent. When I lost my community, I will say I lost a lot. I felt I lost who I was. And I struggled with that for a long time because I lost my business back in 2019. And so for 7 years, like I struggled with community and trying to find my people, and there's a whole story on that. But, I decided one day about 3 months ago, I thought, well, if I miss community so bad and I know that community helps women rise to their potential, why don't I just build my own? And so I started a community. It's called Lead Her Connect. And it's for women who want supporting women, so we gather, online onto a community where I want women to, know that they matter. I want women to be supported by other women, because here's what I found. Maybe you're the type of woman that doesn't want to speak up, and maybe you're the one that's quiet in the room, but you're sitting back, but you're taking it all in. But when you find other women who share not necessarily their struggles, but share like either positive or increased mindset, or they share that they have comparison or they have self-limiting beliefs, the person that's in the back that's afraid to speak up, something's going to happen. Something's going to unlock in her heart and unlock in her mind and go, what? I thought she had it all put together. Or like, wow, I put her on a pedestal, or wow, I thought she was successful. But when we get down to the nitty gritty of it, and when you're in community, that's when you actually start to break free from things that you think are happening where it's not true. It's just, we're normal human beings and we're all equal and we're all women going through the same things in life. Like I said earlier, we just wear it differently. Everyone's different. Everyone's unique. And so you might wear something different than I wear it, but we're probably struggling with at least some of the same thoughts, or at least you might have overcome it, right? And so if you can be around someone that's overcame something, and you're hungry enough to find out what that is, imagine the freedom you're going to get from that.
Oh, I love it. And I love that you didn't hesitate. You created your own community. You didn't see what you wanted out there, so you created your own. And that says a lot. So thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. Yeah, it's building now, and that was a fear that I had. What if no one shows up? What if, and I'm like, I'm going to punch that fear in the face. I'm going to do it anyway. And great women will come along, or right women that, can relate. Those are the ones that will want to be part of it.
I can feel it. You're going to attract the people that need to be there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'll ditto what Christine just said. And I love the leading you to freedom too, right? And one of the things I like to kind of do on our podcast is give some kind of practical advice for our listeners. Do you have like that one small step a woman can take as she's moving forward? Because it's really intimidating to think about reinventing your whole life overnight, right? So we're all kind of looking for like, what is that small, simple step I could take today to lead me towards freedom?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think the forgiveness piece is a really big part of it. I guess an advice I would say is punch fear in the face and do it afraid. It doesn't have to be the biggest picture, but do one small thing, at a time. Do it daily, whether it's, losing weight or starting a business or going on vacation, or what is that dream that you have in your heart that you're saying to yourself, like, maybe I'm too old for this, or whatever the negative thought process you have, is just punch it in the face and do it afraid. Easier said than done. I used to call them little mind monsters. And as silly as it sounds, like I used to get these like little gummy bears. And I was so afraid to pick up the phone. I still have a little bit in me, but I have to punch it in the face. Pick up the phone, because I used to always think I was interrupting somebody. And so I had fear of the phone. And so I got these little gummies, and I just, this sounds so silly, but I would eat the gummy and pick up the phone. And that was my little way to just punch it in the face and do it afraid. And the more you do something afraid over and over and over, I had a mentor of mine challenge me one time. He said, Angie, I can't help you overcome your fear, but I can certainly challenge you to make 30 phone calls. I'm like, done. Okay, done. Because I'm a go-getter, right? And so I did. I'm like, I ate the little, gummy and called the person, and I don't think I'm as afraid anymore. So whatever that is for you that you're afraid of, go get some gummies and eat it and do it afraid.
Angie, I love the way you think. I think all these tips will help all of us who are listening, right? And I love this punch the fear in the face and go get it. Go get it. Something I say in my practice really often is complicated problems don't always require complicated solutions. So grab that gummy, chew it up, and do what you need to do. I love that.
Right. You bring such heart Angie, really. You brought such heart to this conversation, and I can only imagine the amount of heart you bring to the women who are blessed to be with you in the community you're creating. So before we close, let our listeners know where they can connect with you, how they can learn more about Lead Her Connect, and of course, find out about your speaking and leadership work.
You can go directly to my website, Angie Huestis, HUESTIS.com. My bio is on there, or join leadherconnect.com. As far as speaking goes, tonight I'm speaking. We're doing a women's empowerment event. Our title is How to Stop Letting Fear Tell Your Story. So that's one of the topics. I do teach workshops, my Leading You to Freedom workshops in businesses, at women retreats, at women events. That's all on my website. You can fill out a form, get in contact with me through email or my website. And
it's beautiful. And everything that you just shared will be in the show notes that we provide when the episode is published.
Angie, thanks for being here today. And thank you for reminding all of us that our worth is not something we have to earn. It's just in us. Yes, thank you.
And the reminder that we are allowed to release the pressure to prove ourselves. We don't have to be everything for everyone. And we don't have to keep carrying the stories that no longer fit.
That's right.
And I really appreciate your vulnerability in talking about the fear and the childhood trauma, and then how much you've grown and opened up and now giving back to women. And it sounds like you've done this in these small steps, walking small steps towards, whether it sounds like first having safety within, but then really your truth, and then connecting out with others in the community. And it sounds like you've really just cultivated a life that's so much more aligned with who you are. And that's pure joy. I think that's what all of us are striving for, And so everyone listening, maybe today's shift is simply this, like Allie shared at the beginning, you matter. And not after you accomplish more, not after you are more confident or that you give, or you have to say anything, or, really even connecting with others and how to just forgive yourself. You matter now, like right now, exactly in this moment. So if anyone wants to, close their eyes, maybe put their hand on their heart and just breathe into that, because that's something I think that's your strongest takeaway, I'd love for people to get involved and learn more about your Lead Her Connect. And so if this episode resonated, we'd love for you guys to, of course, always subscribe, leave a review, but most importantly, connect with Angie. Like, she has something amazing to give back. And that's why we're here. We wanted to elevate her and share her message and have you understand that you're not alone in this, and that she is the type of practitioner and leader that can bring you to where you want to go. So let's always remember to shift gently together. Cheers. Thank you for sharing the sacred time today.
We hope something in this conversation touched your heart
and offered nourishment for your soul's journey.
Remember, transformation is most effortless when it happens one tender shift at a time.
Until next week, we invite you to carry one insight from today into your life.
Not as a task.
Think of it as a superpower to yourself.
If something resonated, we'd love to hear from you. If you're joining us on YouTube, feel free to leave us a comment below.
Your words ripple outward, offering connection and comfort to others walking this path beside you.
If SoulShift feels like home, please subscribe and consider leaving us a review.
Your support will help us reach more hearts that need to hear they're not alone.
We're holding you in love, so know you're not alone. Your journey matters.
May your heart be filled,
and may your path be filled with grace.